I'd like to call to order the City of Menasha Personnel Committee meeting for January 21st, 2019. Can we have a roll call, please?
Alderman Nichols. Here. Alderman Taylor.
Here.
Alderman Sevenik.
Here.
Alderman Langdon.
Here.
Alderman Kruger.
Here.
Alderman Tom Grady.
Here.
Alderman Ted Grady.
Here.
Alderman Rapella.
Here.
Mayor Merkus.
Here.
Thank you. I'll ask for a motion for the approval of the minutes of the Personnel Committee of dated 1/7/2019. Do I have a motion? Alderman Kruger.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll make the motion to approve the minutes of the Personnel Committee 1/7/19.
Do we have a second from Alderman Sevenik? Any discussions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes approved. We have one item for discussion tonight. It's the FICA Alternative Retirement Plan / from Provision Retirement Group. I'd ask Director Jacobs to enlighten us on this interesting stuff.
I will try to keep this short and sweet and not bore anybody tonight with this. This is a fringe benefit program that was presented to our HR team back in November. And after doing a little bit of homework research and talking to a couple other communities, this is a program, just to give you a little background and for the public out there, this is a program for all employees that would work under 1,200 hours annually. So these would be employees that would not qualify for Wisconsin retirement benefits. So these are all your seasonal, temporary, and part-time employees that work under 1,200 hours. What would happen is that, right now under the existing law, the employees required to contribute 6.2% of their wages towards a future Social Security benefit, and the employer is also contributing 6.2%. So it's a match 50-50 split. There is a program that was created by Congress back in July of 1991. So this provision has existed out there for 28 years. There are a handful of communities that I did list in my memo that have exercised this option to allow employees to participate in a public retirement system plan that's an alternative to what we presently have as mandatory Social Security coverage. So this is an alternate plan for them to provide savings or another funding option that also is a benefit to municipalities, because the employer in this alternative plan would not need to contribute anything. So there is no cost to the employer. So the 6.2% is the amount that would not be contributed by the employer. It would also not be contributed by the employees. In its place, the employee would be contributing 7.5% from their wages. And there was a sheet that was included that was identified this kind of in a little graphic in a chart in the bottom right-hand corner. So you can kind of see that that basically if you look at the way Social Security works today and what their net paycheck would look like versus this FICA Social Security alternative program, it's basically no change in their net pay, or slightly a little bit higher. What happens is that the amount that they contribute is actually pre-tax, so that their federal amount of taxes they'd be paying in their state in their amounts would be lowered slightly by the amount of the additional increase in the contribution. In a nutshell, on the amount of savings for the employer for the city of Menasha, we have, of the amount of W-2s that we issue 357 W-2s. The full-time permanent employees and retired employees and new employees that either started in the system at the beginning of January and have left through retirement, or all those that have remained in the retirement system, that's 131 employees. None of them would be eligible. Plus, the poll workers would not be eligible for this program because under federal law already, they are exempt from Social Security coverage. So right now, the wages that we report on the W-2 for them, it's zero. It's a $0 amount for Social Security. So none of those wages are reported. So therefore, they are not contributing the 6.2%, nor is the employer. So what that leaves left is there are 152 temporary, seasonal, or employees that are not, out of the 357, that are not, that could qualify for this program. And one of the policy directions that you as the council could make for this is that we could set a beginning date for up and running a program like this, effective, say, as of March 1st of 2019. We would make this mandatory for all future employees that become, or returning employees that have, maybe are seasonal and come back every summer. They would be enrolled in the program mandatorily. However, we could make a provision in there that I talked with the vendor today, that is part of our policy, that they would be mandatory to become enrolled in the program, except if we had a discussion, had someone come in and talk about the program to educate them, and then they could sign a form to waive out of the program. So we could provide a waiver option out of the program. They would need to sign the document and submit it to HR and the payroll department for processing. Otherwise, if we get no response back, or if they don't attend the meeting to give us or sign off on a form, they would be automatically enrolled. Today, we presently have, of these 152 employees, it's roughly about $500,000 of wages. So therefore, if we had everybody totally mandatorily and participating and not waiving out of the program, that would be roughly about $31,000 of budgetary savings that we, the employer, would not have to budget for the 6.2% across all the departments. I mean, it's basically any departments that have seasonal and temporary staff. It could be in the police department, in the library, in the health department. It actually would also include interns and aldermen, because none of you are participating in the Wisconsin retirement system due to the number of hours as an employee. So that is kind of in a nutshell the overview of the program. And on the fees side of it, the employees have the options. They can leave those monies in there. So as they would say, work this summer, or if it's like a crossing guard that worked 9 months, they could leave those funds in the fund and just let the 7.5% continuing to build and add up over time. They're not required to take the money out at any time. There is no a dormant penalty. There isn't some companies do charge a fee, say of $1 per month, if they have no contributions into the fund on a monthly basis for those months they aren't working. This company, Precision Retirement Group, does not charge a fee like that. The only fee that Precision does have in there is that you will pay at the time of requested withdrawal, which would happen either in the event of death, retirement, or termination of employment. You can withdraw the funds out of the fund, and it's 100% your monies. You would pay a fee of either the lesser of $12 or the amount of interest that you would have earned on the account. So that the entire amount of principal that you've paid into it is 100% yours when you take the monies out of the fund. Otherwise, there would be no more than a $12 fee for withdrawing it at the time you choose to do that. Talking to the vendor and a couple other entities. What's a $12 maximum would be the fee, or it could be as low as like $1 or $2 if you earn that amount of interest. Yes, $12 is the maximum amount that would be cost to withdraw the funds out of there. But you can leave them funds in there for a year, could be in there for 6 months, or through the season. You can take the money out. It's common for, like, say, college-age kids to use it possibly for taking the amount of money out at the end of the summer season towards tuition, towards books, towards a monthly car payment or car insurance. For people that are already contributing towards Social Security or are drawing on Social Security, say they're retired, say they're work for the city, they're presently drawing on Social Security, they're age eligible. With us withholding 6.2% from them and us contributing 6.2% and reporting those wages, it is not helping their Social Security monthly benefit that they're collecting right now. They already have locked that in, and they're getting the cost of living. So if they earned $3,000, $5,000 in a summer working for us, and we send that information into the Social Security Administration, they're not getting an extra benefit. They're actually losing money because that 6.2%, they're contributing and they're not getting any additional benefit. And we're out of pocketing that, so it's wasted money out of the city's coffers for that. So that's another group of employees.
I understand that part. I can see where the benefit would be with the college kids and the younger type people here. I do see we still have two directors here and the police chief. I don't know if they were informed of this. I think there was a meeting. I wouldn't mind weighing in, maybe asking Director Lenz, with the library especially, if their thoughts and if you were able to talk to some of the part-time people that are there.
I didn't have an opportunity to talk to the people, but I can tell you that some of them would opt in and some of them would opt out. They've got different circumstances, and I think it would be an advantage to the ones that would opt into this program. I think they would take advantage of it because they're just working for the summer and they're going back to college.
Yeah, the younger type kids.
Right.
To Director Jacobs' point, the older age group that are part-time here, it would be kind of a hit to their social security check,
Right.
That's a big difference. And now, if the aldermen are involved in that too, be prepared, it'll be something later in your life. But, I don't know if Officer Steica can weigh in, if he had a chance to talk to any.
I wanted to add one other thing on that, on the wage earnings part of it. In my memo, I had gotten the information directly from the provider. They told me that your highest 30 years of earnings, it actually, looking at the Social Security Administration laws, it's actually 35 years. So if you think about it, that if someone works for us all the way maybe through high school and college up to like age 24, and then end up going on to their career or their full-time job and earn wages between age, like say 24 and age 59, those, the highest 35 years would be the years that would qualify them for Social Security benefits at the highest extent possible. The years working for the city, which likely would, be anywhere from maybe $500 to a few thousands of dollars, would probably not be in their 35 highest years of earnings. So for the younger group, so then the question would come in with, the employees that are, say, in their 30s and 40s and 50s, that maybe this is just a supplemental job, that maybe they're a work part-time just for something to do, get out of the house if they got their kids in school or something. There again, they could have the option to decide what's best for them, like Director Lenz had said. So, but I wanted to make sure on the wage part of it that it's the 35 highest years are the number of years that the Social Security Administration looks at those. Even if you work 40, 45, they're only looking at your 35 highest years, whatever years they may be.
Right.
Hopefully, in their first 5, 10 years of working, hopefully those aren't their highest 35.
Right,
So-
but your 30,000 savings to the city is based on everyone kind of opting in on this.
It would be based, the numbers I ran, we had about $492,000 of wages of individuals classified under a code number, account number 1508 for temporary wages. There are some that are commingled in the library and in the police. We didn't separate everybody out at every department when we did the budget for 2019, so that number's probably higher than that because there are a few hourly employees in the library and in the police that we still had coded to, I think, a 1501 or 1502 hourly wages. But everybody, when I ran the report, it's about 492,000 that were coded specifically under 1508. So the number could be higher than that, but that was the best estimate I could come up with right on the spot.
Okay, thank you. Officer Steica?
So I guess we have people that are across the gamut on all sides of it. We have the younger folks that John was talking about that this probably wouldn't matter to. We have the retirees when you're looking at the crossing guards. And I think John's explained that this really wouldn't have an impact on them. The group that I was concerned about the most is that middle, and John described it perfectly. It's that person that now has the kids in school that's working for us part-time as a relief comm tech. It's new that I just heard tonight that people would have the option to be able to opt out of it. I think that's the important part of it because everyone's situations could be slightly different. If those people would have the ability to continue to go into Social Security based upon where they are in their lives, I think this program makes some sense. If it is an all or nothing thing, I'd be a little leery about that just because crossing guards and the relief contact positions are probably the most challenging ones to fill these days, with officers being a close one up there as well. Obviously, this has nothing to do with that, but I would hate to see a perceived less benefit for any of those positions without people understanding the full scope of it.
Right.
So with them at least having the ability to opt in or out based upon their personal situation, I think would be important.
Okay. Director McKinney?
I was fortunate enough to have our health aides with us this morning doing orientation. And we have 5 highly skilled health aides that work 525 hours a year. But it's 5 days a week, 3 hours a day for the school year. And they work under the direction of a registered nurse in each of the schools. Some of them, their age group is a gamut. But the majority are not the younger group that we're talking about. And there's a couple concerns that they had. I brought it up to them. I gave them each a copy of the memo and asked them what their thoughts were. And at the time, it was mandatory, as was described in the earlier memo. And their questions were, how does this affect my Social Security eligibility? And, you know, the 35 years of showing a track record of having worked. When we withdraw, are the funds subject to taxes? And they are, because this is a pre-tax item. And then what is the return on the investment? So would the investment be commensurate with what Social Security would have provided them with? And then, of course, there's the concerns that people have about Social Security in and of itself. You know, as a society, we're debating, you know, will we have enough to last? But if, you know, you pull out of it as a system, are you going to have enough to keep the system shored up for each of us? So there was a concern about, you know, possibly having a slippery slope here. My basic concerns are with recruiting and retaining a highly skilled staff. And at the time that it was mandatory, one of the individuals said, well, if this is going to be detrimental to my family, and they do consider it, you know, they enjoy their jobs, they're good with the children, but the bottom line is they do it for the money. If it was, one of them said, I would look elsewhere for employment. So they are marketable because they have healthcare skills, and everyone knows that there's high demand for healthcare employees. So those are the concerns, basic concerns I have. And I, you know, like I said, I personally feel that we need to look at this very, very carefully so that we don't, you know, so we can recruit and retain the best and the brightest in our staff.
Thank you, Director. Again, so I like the idea that the option in, option out. So once you're in, you're in. You can't go back out. You can't go back in. I mean,
It's typical to make it mandatory at the time that you start employment. And I mean, I don't envision people opting in and opting out every single year. I mean, the vendor said today, he's like, do you realize that could be a lot of paperwork? And I'm like, I think that once they opt, they're going to go one way or the other, and that's probably going to stay that way if they work for us, you know. And if they see that, you know, they're earning a little bit of interest on the monies, and they keep it in for a little while, if they continue to do this, you know, with us maybe for 5 seasons or 10 seasons or something. One other thing on the taxability, no, it is pre-tax money. So monies that they contribute, the 7.5% is pre-tax. So it takes the amount of their gross wages and you subtract that off of that to figure out for federal and state taxes. So you are paying a little less in federal and state taxes. It is pre-tax, the amount you're contributing on there. And then when you do withdraw the money out, it is taxable to you. But now with the changes in the federal, where it's this is probably the best year to propose this to you all, since you haven't heard this for 28 years, and I don't know why, but as an option. But the federal requirements for filing, you need to earn $12,000 as a single person this year before you even have to file. So if they don't have anything withheld on the monies they're making here for federal purposes, and it's pre-tax to them, when they pull that monies out, say they pull out $500 after maybe working 1 or 2 summers here, that $500 in addition to their wages, if they're purely working temporary or part-time and not making $12,000, they will not have to pay federal taxes on the income when they withdraw that out. All they'll have to pay is the $12, maybe no more than a $12 fee, or whatever interest earnings they had. That would be it. They wouldn't have to pay. It would be counted as income to them. They have to report, but still they would never hit the threshold for even filing or paying taxes on it.
Okay.
One other question that Alderman Nichols had asked me, just to make sure on the 152 employees, is there what's the census count on between men and women, male and female employees? And I ran the numbers this afternoon, and this would affect 74 male employees and 78 female employees. So it is almost a 50-50 split, so there isn't an undue hardship consideration that may come into play if you're asking for having a mandatory program like this, even though we would have a waiver option for them.
Okay, thank you. Attorney, hold on.
First turns on by itself.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention one thing that I had thought of with regard to Social Security disability. Somebody who, in order to qualify, and I forget which way it is, if it's SSD or SSI, one of them is an automatic. If a person becomes disabled, they're eligible, but the other one is based on how, if you've made contributions to the Social Security through wages that you have made over a course of I don't know what the, if it's quarters, I believe it's a certain number of quarters or years that you have to have contributed in order to qualify for that. So, that doesn't obviously happen very often, but that is a consideration. If somebody was not contributing to Social Security and then at some point became disabled, those years that they worked maybe then would affect their ability to collect.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to forward this item to the council? Mayor?
I'd like to make a motion that the city of Menasha continue in the traditional Social Security Administration program without participation in the FICA Alternative Retirement Plan.
I'll second. Any discussion? Mayor?
I think what we're talking about tonight is we're talking about playing with people's retirement. I don't think that's the right thing to do. In my opinion, this doesn't pass the smell test. It smells like we're skirting the system. We're trying to get around something that all of us do in order to have a secure retirement, to have a secure payment that we can live off of, that we can get Medicare from. And what this is going to do is take money out of that system. And we're playing with people's retirement. People, when they're younger, they don't think ahead. They don't think about saving for retirement. I know a lot of people who didn't do that and now are reaching retirement and wondering where they're going to find money from. And if Social Security doesn't have that money, and if too many people do this, none of us may have that. So I think we're playing with people's retirement, and I'm not in favor of doing that.
Thank you. Alderman Nichols? Oh, did you still have a question?
That's okay.
Oh,
Can I still ask a few questions about the
Yes.
proposal?
yes.
Just to clarify a few things. Some of the things were also already covered, and I also reached out to Director McKinney and Lenz and Chief Stika as well, and thank you all for your feedback on the issue. About that money that could potentially be put into their own account, what interest rate would they be earning interest at on that money?
I was told that you would be earning about 1% is what it has been averaging. So it's basically like a regular money market account that you would get at the bank.
And speaking of the bank, how is their money insured if they put it in the account?
It's through a guaranteed annuity account that they have set up. I do not know the investment collateralization that they've got.
That would raise a flag for me because I know if I put my money in the bank, it's insured. And let's see. And this money, if someone chose to participate in this alternative, would their wages be reported to Social Security Administration?
Correct. What would happen is that their federal, state, and Medicare wages will report what their gross amount is. The Social Security would be the only one that would get reported as a zero amount.
So in other words, if we're talking about that group that's older than college students, perhaps, that may be those returning employees, those health aides that come back year after year, their wages that they earn would not be reported to Social Security and would not count towards their earned benefit over the course of their working year.
If they did not sign a waiver, then the dollar wage amount would be reported as a zero.
Yes, and it would not count towards their
It would not count,
benefit.
correct.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with much of what Mayor Merkus said. When you think about that 35 years that's averaged together, your highest earnings as a working person, we all have different situations. We all make different choices. I don't like to talk about myself a lot. As an example, I've been out of the workforce practically for 10 years. That was a choice I made. Very part-time jobs over the course of those years, and slowly getting back into the workforce. But this will be part of my 35 years. And so to take that away from people is very questionable in my mind. And we are talking about over, roughly half of our workforce here at the city. And I think that's a lot of people. And speaking as a female, the research shows that women earn less over their working years than men, and women also live longer than men. And so this, in my mind, really puts a specific burden on women and is especially, it affects them in an especially negative way over the course of their years. And then speaking even more long-term than that, looking, to the future of the Social Security system. It's been around for a very long time. And that is an insurance policy to keep elderly people out of poverty. It's one that we all contribute to, our employers contribute to, and it's a social contract that we as Americans hold very dear, and I think that we owe it to our employees to treat them fairly and to help them ensure that they, to do our best to make sure that we're not sending people into poverty in their golden years. Thank you.
Any other discussions? Director Jacobs?
Just two more comments. The reason I decided to bring this to the council because I felt it's a program that other communities have implemented. Appleton just implemented their program 3 years ago. Neenah implemented theirs 15 years ago. So it is a budgetary savings for our municipal budget. So I will always bring you options that are brought before me to present to you to think about, to say, okay, if we're trying to save, and is 3 cents, this implementing a program like this, 3 cents on the tax rate, is this something to consider? The other thing is the vendor actually brought it up to me today. He says, you got to remember, we're sandwiched between Neenah, who already has this program going, and Appleton. And if we're competing with the same pool of seasonal temporary employees at the pool, or as an umpire, or working for Park and Recs just in the summertime, if we pay about the same pay rate and they work the same number of hours, they're actually making less here because that 7.5% they get as an extra benefit working at Neenah, because they're in a program, not this vendor, but a different vendor, and Appleton is in this program. So if everything is equal, same number of hours, same hourly rate, they're getting an additional 7.5% on the money they put in at the time they decide to pull it out than what we can offer right now with our existing fringe benefit program. So I just wanted to bring it. I didn't come up with the idea, but they said just make sure you communicate that, because we're sandwiched between two communities that offer this program, and the time could come. Not saying it ever would, but it could happen that if Nancy is competing with other people, or the police department is competing with other employees that are qualified in the same positions, and you look just purely at the hourly rate and the number of hours available, they're going to get a better 7.5% benefit than what we are offering. So I just thought I'd just mention that.
Okay. Director Lenz?
I agree with what Alderman Nichols and Mayor Merkes said, but people don't have to opt into this program. And I have one employee who I believe is collecting Social Security, and she would qualify for this. And she's actually losing money then. She'd probably welcome the extra money, I think, when she ultimately does retire from the library. She'd probably really like that bonus.
Okay. Alderman Taylor?
Question for John. What is your recommendation? Well, I mean, they asked us all night long.
The mayor told me purposely, John, let's have a discussion for it. Don't put your formal recommendation in writing.
Okay, put your verbal one.
Based on the information that was shared with me today, I would recommend to install this program, because it would not, even though we would make a policy, or you as the governing body would make a policy to make it effective at some starting date. And the reason I'm bringing it to you right now is because we're getting ready, Candy and I, to get the packets out for all the seasonal employees. So the thing is, we need to try to have this up and going, if we're going to do it at all, by spring break time. Obviously, I think when some of the kids start coming in and start talking with probably the Park and Rec department and other departments for work, I would recommend to implement it, knowing that we could have in place the policy, it's mandatory, but that they could sign a waiver to opt out. Then the consideration would be for the existing employees to allow them to participate in the program, because we're making this as a policy going forward. I'm not saying they're grandfathered, but that we would have them have all of the other existing employees that are presently working right now that could qualify for the program. They could also sign a form to opt out. Or we have some kind of a form that is to opt into the program. So we could make this, but then that's the way it is going forward. So that would be the policy I would like to see if we're going to implement the program. It would save the city money. It would give the option for some existing employees to have a little extra money, and for some of the, maybe more beneficial for the younger kids, to be able to pull money out that they're paying in right now. And those first 4, 5, 6 years that they're working before they actually have their 35 highest, why not let them collect even more, kind of a little pot of money that they could use for whatever they needed it for?
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Kruger?
Thank you, Chair. Hey, John, you mentioned that Mena's had it for a while, Appleton's had it for a while, and you brought up that there could be a situation down the road where that might be a deterrent from people coming here. I just want to ask the chief and the two directors, have you heard of anybody not wanting employment with the city because of this particular program at this point in time? Has this ever been brought up to you over the years, assuming that program's been around 28 years?
Nancy?
I hired health aide 2 years ago, and that did not come at all up in conversation. And a translator / interpreter, and that didn't come up in a conversation. So, but, you know, it might be a little different with other folks. Have you had it?
I don't have a lot of turnover.
Okay. I mean, quite honestly, at the federal level, when any time Congress tried to sit there and even touch Social Security in any size, shape, or fashion, heads rolled. And it's a program that people hold dear to their hearts. And from the reactions from the federal level, I don't think doing something like this would be a popular decision either. So, thank you.
Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. I just had 3 more things based on a little bit of conversation. Considering that these part-time, seasonal, and temporary employees are half of our city staff, the roughly 50%, that's a lot of people, and I think the city already benefits greatly from them being part-time. Think of all the benefits that we already don't, that we don't need to offer because they are part-time. What a great savings to the city already. And hearing that making this move could potentially negatively impact somebody's Social Security disability insurance should they so need it, I think is something that we should heavily consider in a decision. And just a personal note for the employees who may be collecting their Social Security and could benefit from the extra money. I guess when I think of them paying in their 6.5.
It would be 7.5.
7.5.
What they pay to Social Security though.
6.2 right now.
6.2%. They're helping pay for their own benefit. Their check that they get every month, they're paying a portion of that back or helping pay for it. So I don't see it as necessarily a negative for them to continue to contribute to their 6.2% while they're also drawing a check. Thank you.
Alderman Rapella?
Thank you very much, Alderman Grotti. One point I just realized is the people who are still working are helping to pay for the people who are on Social Security now. So we need the younger people to continue to contribute to their Social Security and to our Social Security, the ones that are taking it. I'm not that age yet, but so I would think that this would hurt the people who are currently taking Social Security because the younger ones wouldn't be contributing as much money to them. Is that true, John?
There is an easy fix to this, and the mayor and I have joked about this back and forth. The present wage for Medicare, you pay the 1.45% both employer and employee on no matter what salary or wages that you make. It could be $500, it could be $1 million. You're paying 1.45%. That's not true for Social Security. The wage limit for 2019 is $132,900. It's a very simple solution. You could just raise that to say $200,000 or $250,000. Now, I'm not saying I'm trying to be a proponent to some of the young gals that's running in Congress in New York right now, but just raising it up to what, 7 million or whatever, 10 million. She says just have them pay a tax rate of what, real high percentage. It's an easy solution. You don't have to. What will have to happen someday down the road, the 6.2% rate would have to go up, or the wage limit of 132.9 just raises up much higher than that, and it won't be the the middle class or the lower income people that'll be paying it. You would just have the people that are making the higher salaries contributing more to keep it going. So it's an easy solution. However, would anybody at the federal government want to jump on that right now? They have enough work ahead of them right now, so. So.
Thank you, John.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor and a second, and the motion reads, City of Menasha continues in the traditional Social Security Administration program without participating in the FICA Alternative Retirement Plan. Can we have a roll call vote? I'm voting no. I'm voting no.
Motion fails on roll call, 4-5.
Okay, that'll take us to the adjournment, and is there a motion and a second to adjourn? Oh,
No.
oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. Hold on, Alderman Sevenick? We're, just gotta get through,
I didn't push it.
all right.
I'll make a motion to allow for the city of Menasha to be a part of the FICA Alternative Retirement Plan with Precision Retirement Group.
Second.
We have a second by Alderman Langdon. Any discussion? Let's do a roll call vote. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I could have voted either way, but my point was, and I totally agree with the mayor's statement of what he said, but we also have an option, I mean, people have an option. If there wasn't an option, then I wouldn't be necessarily in favor. So I think this just gives people, if they want to, that option. I only wish it would have been retroactive to 1981.
Thank you.
Ted?
Mayor?
Does this motion include that opt-in, opt-out?
We should make that, I mean, what I'll do, yes, include that in there, and
That's what it meant.
I will have it written up so that you can see exactly what the policy would be going forward with the exact terms, because Nina gave me an example, I can get one from Appleton, so we can just have it ironed out so that you all see what the written policy is for this and the opt-in, opt-out.
No, she's getting it up there.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
so then if that is the case, I think that as elected officials, that we should be subjecting whatever we're more or less opting other people into to ourselves. And I'd make a motion that all,
A motion or?
an amendment to that motion, that all part-time elected officials be enrolled in the program beginning with the February 10th, 2019 payroll.
That's an opt,
I thought the program was an opt-in, opt-out.
right.
But you want to make
My amendment
mandatory?
it would be mandatory for elected
By doing that,
officials.
You're forcing
No.
us to vote no. if you don't want to be
Exactly.
part of it. Is there a second? No.
It dies. It's fine.
Alderman Sevenick?
My point was, I have no interest, okay? But there are possible other employees, such as retired people, that could benefit from this. And that's the way I'm looking at it. So,
With the opt-in, opt-out, right?
right.
Yep. Alderman Nichols?
Thank you. Who would present the information to the employees?
The provider, I talked with them and he said he'd be willing to attend several meetings to explain this to, especially when we get to there are meetings coming up when we have the new summer kids coming online, the seasonal employees. And then he also offered a couple meetings that we could have with our existing staff to educate them in the program. And then they would have enough information to go back home, make the decision, and then they could fill out the proper form.
It always makes me nervous when the person trying to sell the product is doing the presentation. Just want to pass that along. Although I would,
I mean, the HR team will be involved. obviously am present.
My concern would be that they would not get all of the information that would help them make the best decision for themselves. And although it makes me feel better that it would be optional, I still wholeheartedly believe it is bad policy, and that's why I will not be supporting it.
Mayor, do you have anything?
I do. I truly believe that this is a terrible precedent that we're setting here. We're basically asking our employees to trade their future for a short-term gain. We're counting beans here. It's going to amount to very little money in savings for the city, but it could be catastrophic when they do get that opportunity to retire, or one of us get that opportunity to retire and Social Security no longer has as much money if too many people do this. So it's a terrible precedent to set, and I will not be supporting this program at all.
Okay, so we do have so we do have the revised motion up here, or the new motion, to allow City of Menasha to participate in the FICA Alternative Retirement Plan / Precision Retirement Group. Is there any verbiage as to opt out, opt in on this, or are we not?
That was my understanding, that's what it was.
For new hires or returning employees that have not been paid, they would end up being mandatory with an option to opt out, to sign a waiver form to opt out. We would then communicate to the current existing employees that are presently on payroll and communicate this with them also to give them the option to opt into the program. But it would not be mandatory for existing employees.
Existing ones, okay. Alderman Nichols.
Thank you. I'm just thinking about that. Wouldn't it be easier to have them sign a form to opt in? And if you're in, you're in, and if you don't sign the form,
My
you're
thought is
out?
that it's going to be it only goes one way, so that we would communicate with all the existing employees, since we have them all on payroll right now, go around and talk with them, have meetings with them, and they would also sign a waiver form if they wanted to opt out. So it's likely going to be a one-way form for them. But we'll make sure we get the information out to the existing employees as quickly as we could.
In order
if
to
we're
make
implement.
sure that it's very clear, I would like to offer an amendment to the motion to, with, allow, and make the program optional. So to include in the motion, add at the end, and make the program, the alternative program, optional.
It kind of is that.
I'd want to make it clear in the motion,
Okay.
because that is not clear to me, and that just
I
because
understand.
something is implied doesn't mean it may.
The wording from other programs that I've seen is that it would be mandatory with the option to opt out. We couldn't just make it optional in. We have to, but the way that I was talk with a couple people is that we need to set an effective date, so the start date is blank. And then it's mandatory for those with a potential to opt out by signing a waiver form.
Okay. So, Chairman, may I change
Continue.
what I said? Allow the
Yes.
city to participate in a FICA alternative retirement plan Precision Retirement Group. And the amendment would be with an effective date of March 1st.
I don't have a calendar in front of me.
I'm picking the beginning of the month.
I know, it's just March 1st, 2019.
I mean, we could make it effective like March 1st.
I'll say March 2019.
Which would take effect the payroll date that follows after March 1st.
Okay. And with the ability to opt out of said program. Is that clear, Debbie? Opt out. Of the program. Of the alternative plan, let's say.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other further discussion, Mayor?
Is there a reason why you wouldn't opt in? Because if you don't understand what's going on and you automatically get enrolled in it versus I don't understand what's going on, so therefore I stay in the present programming. This could have the impact of people getting pulled into this program, not understanding what they're doing versus the other way around. I would be much more comfortable with opting in than opting out.
I believe it's a program that needs to be not optional in, but optional out, that it's mandatory that we set the policy with it being required, not just required in, or not optional in, but I believe from what the information I've got, like say from the city of Neenah, and then I listened to the meeting from 3 years ago from Appleton, it was a mandatory program that was going forward, that the program will start. However, we're allowing an option out, not the other way around.
I think we want to have both verbiage in there. Please opt out or opt in. So there's no confusion then. Instead of one or the other, have them both. You must opt in or must opt out of this program when you sign it.
What I'll do is I will work with the provider and get some information to see if we can try to make it the way that your motion would read.
Do we want to not vote on this then and wait for the next council meeting?
This is just a recommendation to council.
We can change it.
Oh, okay.
If it's this confusing, what are the people?
How about we move forward with the motion, they can continue to investigate, and then if something needs to be changed at the council level in 2 weeks, we could do it then.
Okay. All right, Miss Debbie, where are we?
Option or out?
Oh, we get the amendment up.
If we have to re-amend it at common council, that'll be.
This is what the amendment is?
Is that correct, Alderman Nichols? If that's correct.
With the effective date of November 2019 with the ability to opt out. Yes, that's the amendment.
Okay. Is that what you're going to vote on now, is the amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's have a roll call vote. Oh,
He needs a calendar.
No.
March 1st is a Friday. It says March up there, I can use any date.
Yeah. March 1st.
Well, it should be the first payroll of March 2019, is what I think
by
was
the first,
implied.
yeah.
Effective first payroll date. Still vote no.
Yeah.
I vote yes for this. This is the amendment.
Are we ready here?
I'm ready.
Let's see, with the effective first payroll of, yes, that's the amendment. And we had a second? All right,
Not the amendment.
let's take the roll call vote. You want the
Just the
amendment?
amendment.
Just the amendment. Amendment. Then we're going to vote later.
Motion carries on roll call 8-1.
So we voted for just.
That-
Just the
That's
amendment.
that's just amendment.
Vote on the actual.
Now we vote,
As amended.
Gotcha.
no question. I'll wait for clerk to be ready. So here's the motion. To allow the city of Menasha to participate in the FICA Alternative Retirement Plan / Precision Retirement Group as amended. Take a roll call vote.
Motion fails on roll call, 3-6.
Got smoked.
Okay. Let me get your,
If we have no further business then.
I'm locked up here.
Move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.